Hey everybody, it's Laurie from LlamaIndex here, and today I'm going to walk you through LlamaCloud Index. LlamaCloud Index is our enterprise service to allow you to load, parse, index, and retrieve data, and then use it in AI agents built in our LlamaIndex open source framework. In this tutorial, we'll show you how to get started with LlamaCloud Index by creating your first index, loading data into it, setting up some configuration parameters, and then plugging that data into an agent. To do that, I'll walk you through a very simple agent built in LlamaIndex open source using our agent workflow abstraction. This isn't intended to be a full agents tutorial, but I'll provide you with some links to dive deeper. By the end of this, you'll have learned how to create a LlamaCloud index, how to load data into it, how to retrieve data from that index, and how to use that data in an AI agent. The data set that we're going to be using today is a set of deposit accounts and rate agreements from JP Morgan Chase. It's a set of very dense and technical PDFs, perfect for getting an LLM to do the work of understanding them and reading them for you. So let's get started. The first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create our index. So we hit the Create Index button and we give it a name, Index Demo Video 2. And now we'll need to configure a data source. We support all sorts of data sources. You can get your data from S3 buckets, from Azure Blob Storage, Microsoft OneDrive, SharePoint, Box, Google Drive. But today I'm going, for simplicity, instead of hooking up to a big enterprise-y data source, I'm just going to drag and drop some documents directly into my index to get started. You now need to configure a data sync and an embedding model. A data sync is where your vectorized data gets stored once it has been parsed. Again, we support lots of different data syncs, Quadrant, Pinecone, MongoDB, Milvus, Postgres, but I'm just going to be using our managed option where we do it for you. Likewise, for our embedding model, we support all sorts of embedding models from all sorts of providers. I'm just going to be using our default, which is OpenAI. And then you get to the configuration parameters. If my documents had a lot of images or graphical data, I would enable multimodal retrieval, but I don't need to do that right now. And for the very best parsing accuracy, I'm going to up my settings to premium accuracy. I could specify specific pages to parse and stuff like that. There's all sorts of options that I could set, but I think the defaults are going to be fine for me. I'm going to have my segmentation be page chunking, and then I'm just going to hit deploy index. It uploads my files, and then it gives me an index creation. In this case, I'm not going to wait around because it takes a minute or two for those documents to parse, so I'm going to use an index that I created earlier. So let's head over to our notebook. In this notebook, we're going to create our agent and get it to use the data that we just uploaded to our index. As usual, to get started, the first thing you need to do is you need to install your dependencies. And we're also going to need two API keys. One is a LlamaCloud API key. You can get a LlamaCloud API key by just going to the API keys button here and generating a new key. You need to make sure that it is attached to the right project so that you can access the indexes that you intended to. I've already put my LlamaCloud API key into my Colab secrets, and likewise an Anthropic API key. If you're building an agent, that agent is powered by an LLM, and in this case, we're going to use Anthropic to power our LLM. So now we can bring in the index itself. This is very simple. We give it the name of the index that we created and what project it was in, and we give it our LlamaCloud API key, and that gives us an index. We can smoke test that this index is working at all by running a very simple retrieval. So what is the monthly service fee for Chase Total Checking? You'll see that it found 6 nodes, and you can see what these nodes are. Remember, we chose page level chunking, so each of these nodes is a different page in a different file. Banking fees and services, and it's picked pages 3, 8, 7, 5, 2, and 6 as being relevant to that question. But that's not an answer to our question, that's just the raw data that we will use to answer our question. To actually answer the question, we need to bring in an LLM. Now we're going to pull in Anthropic and instantiate an LLM. In this case, we're going to be using Claude Sonnet 4. And we can turn our index into a query engine by giving it that LLM. So we ask the same question again, and you'll see now instead of just getting raw nodes, we get an actual answer to our question, which is that the monthly service fee for Chase Total Checking is $12. But that is just naive RAG. We can do a lot better than that by creating an agent that is able to use tools and make multiple queries and in general just be a lot smarter about what it's doing. So let's see how that's done. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a very simple tool that just adds two numbers together. And the second thing we're going to do is create a query engine tool based on the query engine that we created just above. We have to give it a name and a description. This is how the LLM knows what the tool does. In the case of the Python function, it uses the function name and the function description in the doc strings to decide what that tool does and how to use it. So now we have two tools. We can create a function agent. I will include a link to the agent tutorial so you can find out how to make function agents and other kinds of agents. But suffice to say for now, we're going to create a function agent, give it our two tools, the add and the JP Morgan tool. We're going to give it an LLM and a system prompt telling it that it's an expert in JP Morgan Chase banking fees and procedures. Now we are ready to ask a really complicated question. So our agent is a workflow. I'm not going to give you a full workflows tutorial, but the good thing about workflows in LlamaIndex is that you can get streaming events out of them. So you can see what is happening under the hood as the workflow executes. So I've pulled in some workflow specific imports, and now I'm going to run our agent, which is a workflow. I've given it a very complicated question. You have a Chase Total checking account with $25 in your balance on Monday morning. Throughout Monday, you make a $15 grocery purchase, etc., etc. You've done a whole bunch of stuff. What are your overdraft fees going to be? Here, I'm printing out the streaming output from the agent so that we can see what's happening. We're going to see what tool calls are made, what arguments were passed to those tools, and we're also going to see what the output from those tools was. So the very first thing that the agent decides to do when I call it is it calls the JP Morgan Chase tool. And you'll notice that this query isn't the query that we gave it. It's no longer naively just passing our query to RAG. It is thinking about it and rephrasing this to come up with a very specific answer to the specific thing that it wants to know, which is what are the overdraft fees? And you can see that the query engine gives it detailed output. Then it decides for the additional, more complicated parts of the query, it's going to call the same tool again. So it's able to query the same database multiple times to get more data. So this time it asks it about debit card replacement fees, which are definitely not going to be in the same parts of the document as the overdraft fees, and also what the Chase stop payment fee is. Then you can see that it's got some fees and it is called the add tool to add the fees together, and it's got a tool output of 45. Once it's got all of those tool outputs, the LLM runs one more time and produces a final answer, which is going into detail about what happens. This would be declined, this would happen, our balance would go into overdraft here, what the fees would be, why they would be that, and how you can avoid them. This is an agent being an agent. It's being super helpful. It's thinking about the query. It's asking multiple questions of its tools and using them intelligently. I hope this is an example of how an agent can work really well with LlamaCloud's powerful indexing and parsing features, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for listening.